was the creative process like in approaching it? Because I know you've been on quite a rich vein of form with your novels.
You mean approaching the movie or
the screenplay?
Or the screenplay.
Yes.
Well, it was a long, hard process from first draft to the screen, and it started a few years back. I was working with Sam Mendes, director. Sam went off to make some Bond movies, and the project rather floundered. I was busy with other things, and it rather got forgotten by everybody, including me. When it came to life again, the great good fortune was that Saoirse, who I always had in mind for the part, was old enough to play it. I mean, she'd been 16 when I started, and now she was 22. Great stroke of luck. Generally, the process been working to find ways of bringing this novel to life, principally because there's very little dialogue in the first half of the novel. So inventing a language for these two figures, and actually for all the supporting cast as well, was the first technical challenge.
Yeah, I revisited Atonement over the course of the weekend, and I'm always very surprised at how you approach memory, melancholy, and non-linear narratives. How, where does that come from for you as an author and screenwriter? Because I think they really make your film or your screenplays stand out from sort of other British films.
I think many of the techniques of movie making are very close to the techniques of novel writing. The flashback, for example, and playing fast and loose with linear time, something very, very common to both forms. Fortunately, I mean, as audiences and as readers, we've all become so immersed in the grammar of this, we hardly notice how good we are as consumers of complex time schemes. I mean, that might have, if you'd taken a difficult non-linear narrative movie and showed it to Anthony Trollope or Jane Austen, they'd have been completely lost. A reverse, a simple cut and reverse, or a two-shot that becomes a one-shot would seem baffling. That grammar now is just part of the air we breathe. So one is lucky as a writer that you can rely on a very expert audience who don't even know they're expert.
Yeah, funnily enough, I studied Larkin at college, and I was very drawn towards Annus Mirabilis. I went back and reread it. Yeah. Was that something, as you say, with the process, was that something that kind of came back to life in your head as you were reading it? Because that opening couplet is simply...
I mean, I was going to put it there as an epigraph in the novel, and then I decided it was just too well known, and so of course it crossed my mind. But actually, once I was launched on the thing itself, I was just down to the details of these characters. But yes, it's a lovely line. I think we all love the fiction of turning points, and they are fictions. I mean, but they help us structure the past, and they're very important.
You recently said that your son studied your own work. I was wondering, curious, in light of your comments, how do you see sort of cinematic influences upon your work? Because you talked in the article about it being quite dubious and comparing people's works against one another. Was there any films that you looked at when approaching this screenplay there?
No. I was always completely focused on the best way of translating this novel. Only in general, my sense of, I've been writing screenplays since the mid-70s. So its momentum was quite great for my own sort of long learning process of how to do this. So I suppose in general I would have in mind there are certain literary adaptations which I think succeed largely by not abandoning the work that's being adapted. So often in movie making, they buy, the organisation buys the rights to a movie, and then they just travel as far away from it as they can. So the supreme example of a successful literary adaptation, to my mind, is John Huston's adaptation of The Dead, James Joyce's novella. And it succeeds by really honouring Joyce. If you really want this property, if you can regard it as a property, squeeze all of its, what's on the page into the movie itself.
I suppose Ford it was not a luxury, but he didn't have Joyce to talk to. Whereas with you and Dominic Cooke, there is an open discourse.
He might have been lucky not to have Joyce.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure Joyce would have been all that interested or helpful in this. But yeah, I feel very close to the subject matter of On Chesil Beach. All the locations are very much part of my own past. I lived in Oxford, I've hiked the Chilterns, I've hiked that beach. The 100 Clubs, one of the places of my youth. Wigmore Hall is where I frequently go to hear chamber music. And there's a lot of Edward in my own past. Not the wedding night. I didn't have a wedding night like that, thank God. But there's something in him that is really strongly in me. So for that reason, I didn't want anyone else to touch it.
Yeah. What was the dialogue like between you and the director? Because obviously
very good. Dominic's the theatre director, as you know, and one is lucky as a screenwriter to work with a theatre director, because theatre is a writer's form, genre, and a theatre director really is much more respectful of writers than some film directors I've worked with, who really just want you to be a glorified secretary to the twists and turns of their imaginations, or hand-holding is another business. So from the beginning we collaborated, we rehearsed together with the actors, we spent time in post-production in the editing suite, and we saw it through many drafts and many emails and many phone conversations and meetings. So I found him to be an arch collaborator, very open, and yet at the same time I was always very happy the final decisions, because it is a director's form, were to be his. So it was fine.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey